Good morning. You're listening to Insurance Matchmaking, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance. And now, sharing his knowledge, here's your host, Matt Libby.
Well, welcome back to Insurance Matchmaking. We're in April now, believe it or not. In the spring, things are happening. We wake up to yellow cars because they're all covered with pollen. My wife is really dealing with allergies. Fortunately, they don't seem to bother me. The spring allergies, I don't usually seem to have an issue there. Fall, sometimes I think I get fall allergies, but not spring allergies. So fortunately, that doesn't bug me. Now, there's been times I've been out when the pollen's really heavy. You're going to react whether you're allergic or not if it's really thick. I can remember this was years ago, back when I was stationed in Italy. And I may have mentioned this before about how I saw a lot of Italy at 100 miles an hour. I got involved with the group that officiated the sports. You know, they did our rec leagues on post. Well, and the Italians were playing American football. And so they loved having us Americans who, grew up with the sport and kind of understood, not just some repurposed soccer officials, didn't really grasp sometimes the concept of the game. Plus, I think they were concerned. Some of them, there was some favoritism where we didn't care whether it was Bologna or Milano or I don't know. We didn't have a team in Venice, but anyway, it was down. I was trying to think of the name of the city. I think Grosseto, was the name of it. Anyway, it was down a little bit farther south than we normally went, and kind of very close to the coast. And they had coastal pine trees, and when the wind would pick up, it was just a yellow cloud would sweep across the field. It was you couldn't help but cough and sneeze and rub your eyes because it was just pine pollen everywhere. Fortunately, like I said, I wasn't allergic, but when you deal with that much pollen, you're going to have reactions. So I do want to kind of cover a few things. We're going to be short-staffed here. Going to be some scheduling issues coming up, and I've always say, hey, when you're calling, if you leave a voicemail, tell us why you're calling. Don't just ask for the call back. It really helps us if we know the reason you're calling for, because a lot of times we can get an answer for you, so that if we call you back or email you, we can get you that answer. And so there's going to be a lot of times that maybe you're calling and no one's answering the phone. Fortunately, Lena is back from maternity leave. She came back. She was back. First day back was yesterday, as I'm recording today. So glad to have her back. And I don't know if I've mentioned it here on the radio, but Kalia and her family, they've been at Vanderbilt. Her baby that she had basically last fall, late summer, early fall last year. Grayson she's been struggling, not to take care of him, but to get him to grow and be healthy. And unfortunately, they are in Vanderbilt now, been there now for a little over a week, and coming home is not anything probably happening soon. So Bree is kind of Kalia is pretty much out of pocket, and just, say a prayer for the Walker family. It's been a tough time for them, and they've got other little kids too, so it's very hard for parents to have to deal with a very sick child in the hospital and still try to be a parent to their other children, and it's tough. And if you've been through that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I believe they are now in the Ronald McDonald House. That kind of helps. It's right there close to Vanderbilt, a block, 2 blocks away, so it's very easy to get there. And nice place to stay. You have a spot in the refrigerator. You can store some food. You can cook some food. There's churches that'll come in and serve lunch or serve dinner, so it's a lot easier than staying in a motel. And they do ask you to pay per night, but it's definitely a lot less than you would pay in a motel around there. So it really can help the families. And then Bree decided she wants to do something else. She's still going to be part of the team, but she will be kind of working on her own and not be on the Matt Libby Insurance payroll for wages. She can still earn commission. She's still going to, she still wants to take care of her clients and still, work at growing her insurance business. But she's been offered a really great position, to try something else and but still be able to do her insurance. But she's not going to be in the office, so that's what I was talking about with the phones. The phone staffing, it's kind of I joked last week because there was 2 days that I was in the office all by myself because of course Lena was not back and Bree had a couple days that she had gone out of town. It was funny. The phones basically didn't ring. I think I had 2 phone calls from clients in the 2 days. Had a couple robocalls that I didn't get in. I think that was about it. I think maybe one person came in the office. It was like I was saying, "Oh, I'm going to have to answer the phones," because I don't normally answer the phones. I like to have someone there, to get the calls and set up a call back. And again, Lena's not a licensed agent, but if you have a question, you can still kind of let her know what the question is, because a lot of times it's just like, oh, I'm thinking about seeing this doctor. Are they in network? Well, that's something we can look up and get an answer to you, and even she can do it. So there's things that she could answer for you, or if you have a question that's like, oh, what was that one plan I signed up? How much a month was that going to be coming out of my bank? She can go and pull the file and get that answer for you. So that's so you don't have to have that answer from me or from one of the other agents that signed you up. We've doing a great job of, she's doing a great job of keeping our files up to date. So she's going to know where to go and look for those things. So we're going to, so Lena's a big asset to the team here. And if you know anybody that maybe I've mentioned a couple times, if they've thought about getting into the insurance business, we're going to have a space for someone to work. I don't know. Again, I mentioned on a recent show that I don't know that I'm looking to hire someone to be an agent and put them on payroll versus someone who maybe will split commissions or something like that. But who knows? I mean, it just depends on how it's going. What I really kind of like is if somebody maybe they have a part-time job during the day, or maybe they're a part-time student and are looking for another way to earn income and would maybe be interested in working like the early evening, maybe working from 4 to 8 in the evening, making phone calls, working leads that way. So I can help someone if they're interested in taking on this career part-time. A lot of people started that way. It is a commission business, so it's, sometimes you need that part-time job to kind of pay the bills while you're building up your clientele, and then after a while you kind of get to the point of, hey, that job is now getting in the way of my career, and you leave the job and then throw yourself into the business. So those are some things that just kind of bringing you up to speed on what's happening at Matt Libby Insurance, and but we're still there. I had the opportunity this last week to be a sponsor at the Fairfield Glade Ladies Club, their spring marketplace. They have vendors come in with different crafts or different things, and then they have a huge bake sale. They had, it's kind of funny. They had in the center, kind of the courtyard of the Village Green Mall there in Fairfield Glade. They had kind of a corral of tables, and so the ladies were inside the tables, and then they had the baked goods laid out there on the tables. And as I noticed at one time, it's like, wait a minute, there's not as many tables out there as there was. And then a little bit later, I noticed they were consolidating the tables. So they had, I don't know, it may have been more than 4 tables, but they had it in a square, and they were full of baked goods when they started, and then there was 3, and then there was 2, and then when I decided I was going to grab some stuff before I left, they're like, hey, everything's half price now. So I probably bought more goodies than I needed to at that point, but it was and it all goes to good cause. If you're not familiar with the Fairfield Glade Ladies Club, they really do a lot for the community. They do scholarships. They do, they'll sponsor like Habitat. Just a lot of different things they do to help out their community. You can check them out online or on Facebook. They're busy. They're not just a social club. They do a lot of social things. They take trips together. They have a monthly luncheon, but they do a lot for the. And it's not just Fairfield Glade, but the Upper Cumberland, especially mainly Crossville, but other areas of Upper Cumberland, they do help out a lot of things. So those are some things you can look into. Made some changes lately, and just kind of still kind of branching out on some of the new product offerings. Did a training yesterday with from the group that I'm working with to offer the MediShare plans, and they have a plan that kind of goes along with that. They can go along with that plan to cover the high out-of-pocket costs before it starts sharing. And in the sharing programs like MediShare, they call it the annual household portion. Works just like a deductible on a health plan, and you can get one that's only $3,000, and I say only $3,000, but that's a family rate. But that plan then is that $3,000 for the whole family, and then after you've spent the $3,000, then you start sharing your health costs with the other members. So it works very similar to insurance in that way, but obviously, if you're going for the lower amount of the deductible amount, as they would call it, or we would call it, is you're going to pay more per month. So it can make sense to take on one of their plans that the annual household portion is higher, and then supplement that with a plan that fills in that gap. And I think I mentioned this a little bit last week, but I went through a training yesterday that talked about how those plans work, and I know I'm getting a little bit close to the break here, so I'm going to kind of ramble on here. I want to talk go in a little bit more detail of some of the stuff that came out in that training to talk about that plan, and then how it can help others. And it's not just, you don't just have to have MediShare to be eligible for this plan. Actually, this plan that like I said, I'm going to go into the details on it a little bit more after the break. Anybody can get the plan, and I really mean anybody, and I'll explain that after the break. That when we get there is how that can transpire. So we'll get into that after the break. Just remember, I'm still looking for guests. So if you know someone, I did have someone call me that's a listener, and they're going to be on the show the first week of May. And I may tease that a little bit more later, but I'm not on later show. I'm not going to say who it is, so you have to keep listening to figure out who's going to be my guest on the first Saturday in May, and we'll talk about that then. So like I said, we're coming up on the break here, and then I'll go into that how the wellness share plan works.
Join Upper Cumberland Habitat for Humanity for their Dream Builders Putnam Luncheon, Tuesday, May 13th from 12 to 1 p.m. at The Edge at Life Church. You'll get to hear from donors, homeowners, and volunteers. Admission is $25. And if you're interested in being a table host, please reach out to Casey at 931-528-1711, extension 6. It's Upper Cumberland Habitat for Humanity's Dream Builders Putnam Luncheon, May 13th, 12 to 1 at The Edge at Life Church. What does internet mean to you? It means you can decide on the plan that's best for you and however you live your online life. Are you a big gamer or a binge-watching streamer? Twin Lakes has a plan for that. Maybe you casually check headlines and email. We have a plan for that too. With Twin Lakes, you can get the plan that's right for you. Learn more about your internet options by calling 800-644-8582 or by visiting twinlakes.net. Twin Lakes, internet for you.
And now, back to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby Insurance.
All right, and we're back. As I mentioned, the wellness sharing plan, I was going to go into a little more detail on that. It can be very affordable, and I meant to print out the sheet and have the info in front of me, but one of the things I wanted to talk about on that is, and I said anybody can get it, it actually is a guaranteed issue plan. They don't turn anybody down for any existing health conditions. Now, if you have a lot of health conditions, it might not be a good fit because you'll kind of run out of benefits. It's depending on which plan you take. There's one that covers just the preventive things that normally are covered on it's called a minimal essential care plan. So there's 3 levels to it. All 3 levels will cover preventive care. So if it's time, ladies, for your mammogram or It can be ladies or guys, but it's time for that colonoscopy. It's going to pay for that, and then it has like a discount prescription program built in. So that's the lowest phase, and then the second and third phase, or not phase, but level, will cover copays at doctor visits. The first one has it's 3 doctor visits a year. That it's a $25 copay, and then the higher version is you have 4 doctor visits for $35 copay, and they're going to pay up to $150 to the doctor on those plans. And then you have hospital benefits, the first day in the hospital, or you can that, and then per day, and of course the higher level is going to be more. And one thing I thought was really neat on these plans was on the family rate. The difference for the family rate from the middle plan to the top plan was $5 a month. So it really would make sense if you're buying it at, as a family. Why would you even look at the middle option? The top option is going to be, so much more value. It's going to pay more per hospital stay. You're going to have more prescription coverage. And so the way I mentioned, the plan is guaranteed issue. You have the wellness benefits that are covered. And even on the low plan, the lowest plan doesn't have copays for doctor visits, but the other ones do. But the copays for doctor visits and the preventive is covered no matter what your health condition is. You can have that covered. Now, with pre-existing conditions on the hospital portion, there is a 1-year waiting period for pre-existing. And again, you have a chronic illness, but you end up in the hospital for a car wreck. There's no waiting period for that because that was an accident. It had nothing to do with your health. But if you're hospitalized for the pre-existing condition, it's not going to pay the first year. But that's still a great service. A lot of times people that maybe have a chronic condition, what I run into a lot of times, a lot of my plans that will reimburse for hospitalization, or there's some type of indemnity plan, supplemental plan as we call them, and you've now been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and or you're over a certain height and weight. This plan, as I mentioned, it's guaranteed issue. There are no health questions. They do not ask if you're a smoker. They don't ask if you had cancer last year. It's you fill out the application, takes about 5 minutes, and it's done. It's issued, and it can go effective like in the next day. Or no, I take that back. It's not the next day. They do it. It starts on the 1st of the month, and you have to apply by the 25th of the month for it to go in effect the next month. So if you're doing it sometime after the 25th, it's going to be another month before you can get that plan. So you can get it almost, you can get it approved immediately, but it's going to start on the 1st of the following month, which is very typical with most health plans. So that's not unusual. A lot of the stuff that's not the healthcare marketplace or Medicare, you can have them start, the next day or a few days later. But as I said, it's guaranteed issue. Maybe you've looked at getting, you've been concerned about a hospital plan, or especially like only time I've been in the hospital, and technically I wasn't admitted, but gosh, 4 years ago now when I broke my knee? I can't believe it's been that long. It's been almost 4 years this summer. But, I ended up in the emergency room, and I've talked about how I had supplemental insurance that covered that. But I am now a type 2 diabetic. So some of the plans that I offer for hospitalization, they would turn me down, or they'd say I could get the guaranteed issue plan, and it's way more expensive than the regular plan. So these plans are very competitively priced. So please give us a call and say, hey, I heard you talking about that wellness share plan on the radio. I'd like to look into that for me and my family. So give us a call, send us an email, whatever, and we will see if that plan's not a good fit for you. And there was something else I was going to talk about today, and I totally forgot what it was. I think it was something I got in an email. Let me see if I can figure out what that email was. Being a younger baby boomer myself, this kind of hit, was in 4 years, the youngest baby boomers turned 65, because that's when we end. I think, what was it? because people are born in 1960 are turning 65 now. So maybe it says 5 years, but I didn't think it was on a 5-year mark that we ended what we considered ended the baby boom. I was thinking it was like 1963. So either way, but 76 million people in our population of the United States is between the ages of 65 and 83. And the reason I bring this up, this came as an email from one of the providers for the annuity plans that cover the long-term care. And it's actually it's the plan that my wife and I have, so I can definitely say I think it's a great option. You don't have to be perfect health to get this plan. It helps to be in good health, but you don't have to be perfect. I think the toughest thing on this plan is you do have to, part of the underwriting process is you get called by a nurse that interviews you about your health, and part of that interview is a memory test. And so it can be a little stressful. It's not something you're going to do in 15 minutes. They tell you it's going to take about an hour, and it's going to take an hour because part of it is they want to stretch out that test, because then they'll ask you about things that they mentioned when they first started talking to you, and you have to go, oh, yeah, you gave me a list of animals, and you got to get 6 or 7 of the 10 that they mentioned. So it can be fun. I say fun, and of course that's sarcastically, but it's a great plan. And again, it can be very helpful. They also do a whole life plan that would fund that long-term care. So it comes in very handy. As I've talked about before, if you've put off getting long-term care and you wait until you're getting ready to get your Medicare, it might be kind of tough to get something in place that would cover long-term care. And traditional long-term care, as I said, being very expensive, and is also a use it or lose it proposition. That's why I think it's very important to consider a life insurance that has the long-term care capabilities. And again, if you're younger, maybe you're not looking, even if you do get like some type of long-term care plan because maybe you're in your 30s or 40s or early 50s, still look at getting some, you may get some term life insurance that has terminal and chronic care riders built into them also. So you can have those kind of long-term care processes, but you're getting it from your life insurance. And I know I've talked about this a lot last few weeks. I guess it's just been concerned about that. The other is I talked about that wellness share plan, because we are expecting things are going to change with their healthcare plans. They're going to be facing higher deductibles. They're maybe going to have to look at doing a non-qualified health plans, the Affordable Care Act plans, because the subsidies are going to change. The subsidies were raised a couple years ago, but the legislation that raised those subsidies did have a ending date, which is the 2025. So the new rates for 26 are probably going to be the old rates of 2020. So that being said, some people are going to leave the marketplace plans because they're just going to be too expensive for them, but they still need some type of coverage, and that's why I'm talking about some of these other plans. The other great thing is some of the plans that I mentioned is get them at a certain age, and the price doesn't go up. So if you're looking for something that's going to supplement your health insurance, you get it before you're 65, and that's one of the things. Some of the plans that I've talked about, and I may have mentioned this a couple of weeks ago too, was the cancer plan that I'm kind of pitching lately. Is it has age bands. This is what your rate will be when you get it. And if you get it before Medicare, you're getting it in the 60 to 64 age band, and not the 65 to 69 age band. And then it doesn't go up. So you can lock in those lower rates before you go on Medicare. Or, you don't have to be going on Medicare. Maybe you want to get it before you turn 60. Again, lock the rate in at a younger age, and then they don't go up. There are some plans, I did have a little bit, as I say, egg on my face. I told somebody, get this plan now. Your rate, get the low rate. It's not going to go up. And then about 5 years into it, they raise the rates. So the companies always say we reserve the right we reserve the right to rate increased premiums, and it wasn't a significant increase. That individual still, as a client, still has those plans. And I realize we talked. I enrolled in him 10 years ago. So I do have clients that have been my clients for 10 years now. That just blows my mind. I just think everybody's like, oh, I've got them for a year or two, and then I got to get new clients. But no, I actually have clients who have been my clients for over 10 years now. So that's kind of neat. I had somebody reach out to me the other day and say, oh, how long you been doing this? And I started to say, there's just 10 years, and it's like, no, it's really closer to 11 now that I have been doing the health and Medicare. I've had my license since 2013, so it's almost 12 years that I've been licensed, but 10 and a half years, because 2014 is when I really got into the health insurance. As I mentioned before, I did AFLAC before, learned a lot about the supplemental. Just that business-to-business marketing mode just didn't work well for me at that time. I think I've done better in the individual market. So that's how I got into health insurance. So most plans, they're issue age rated for the premiums. There's a couple plans I offer that will go up as you get older. Very, very few plans. But even though, again, they're going to be like that age band. They're not going to go up every year. It'll be, at a certain age band. You reach a certain age, and your premium may go up 15%. But that'll be that rate for the next 5 years. And they're still really affordable at that. But the younger you get it, when you to get it in place, that you might need it, it's good to have it at a lower rate. So I'm running out of time here, and I've just been kind of rambling. Sometimes I come in and try to do 2 shows at the same sitting, but I didn't come prepared to do that. But until next week, remember, at Matt Libby Insurance, we'll cover you from head to toe. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. Please go to insurancematchmaking.com and click on the pre-recordings or the recordings of my past shows that are on YouTube. Please like and subscribe and share those with your friends, and we'll talk next week.
You've been listening to Insurance Matchmaking with Matt Libby, your path to health, life, and Medicare coverage with Matt Libby Insurance.